The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today I have my favorite eye poker, and I say that with all the love in my heart. We got to spend some time chatting and catching up and spending some girly girl time. But right now, Dr. Lorraine Day, who has come into the classroom since 2013, has woken me up to a place where my whole way of thinking has been altered. And it's not been altered because I do as she says, but I listen and I research and I confirm. And that is exactly what I want you all to do in today's class. Now, today's class we're not going to be able to answer your questions, but if you do have your questions, you type in your questions and email it to me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com, and I will collect all your questions and send them to Dr. Lorraine Day. And if you want the answers to that, then you have to reach out to me and do that. So today we're going to be talking about her latest book, Germs Don't Cause Disease Any More Than Flies Cause Garbage. There's more to the title. And so today, we've heard her talk about her passion about waking us up about germs, terrain versus the germ theory. And it is so important that we listen today because she's going to poke you in the eye a couple of times today, I assure you. And this is her book that we're going to be talking about today. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Dr. Lorraine Day is here to do just that. Welcome back, Dr. Day, to the classroom.
Thank you so much. Well, you and I have talked about before that everything is a lie out there. Everything is a lie. And William Casey, the former director of the CIA, said we will know that our disinformation program is complete when everything every American believes is false. There are so many things that we have believed all of our lives that are false. And I want to say right up front that the information in this book is a revelation to me as well. Because for years I was a professor at a medical school at University of California, San Francisco. And I taught a whole bunch of lies because I believed them. And that's still being taught to your doctors, the ones you are going to. They don't understand because they trust their professors who don't understand either. So the title is that germs don't cause disease. Now, everybody believes that germs cause disease. They say, use this disinfectant, use Clorox, and use the other, kill the germs so we don't get disease. Well, I want to tell you, here's the first thing you need to think about. How do medical researchers prove that a certain organism, microorganism like a bacteria or a virus, causes a disease? How do they establish that? That is very important. You have to understand that if you're going to believe a disease is caused by a certain bacteria or virus, you have to know how do they establish that that actually occurs. So we're starting out with the first chapter in the book talks about Just because you're there doesn't mean you did it. If you see firemen at a fire, they didn't cause the fire. They're there to fix it. If you see EMTs at a massive traffic accident, they didn't cause the injuries. They're there to fix the problem. If you see a vulture eating a dead animal, the vulture didn't kill the dead animal. The dead animal was attracted the vulture to clean up the mess. So if just because you're there doesn't mean you did it. An investigative detective would be fired on the spot if he accused you of robbing a bank just because you were in there at the time the bank got robbed. I mean, you could have been going and, depositing money or anything else. Just because you're there doesn't mean you did it. That's very important to understand, because the medical profession has used that as a cause of disease, just because a germ is there. Now, we also ought to define what a germ is. Okay. Now, they say bacteria and viruses are germs, but bacteria, in order to be a germ to cause a disease, you have to show that that's the opposite of a toxin or a poison. Now, a toxin or a poison is like strychnine or sarin gas or drinking antifreeze. That's poison. That's not a microorganism. Microorganisms are bacteria and viruses, according to the medical profession. Bacteria are viruses, and microorganisms are something that's supposedly alive. You'll admit that a poison is not alive. It's a chemical. Okay. So then bacteria and viruses and yeasts are life forms, supposedly. Well, then how do they define what is living? Well, one of the definitions of what is living is that it has to be able to reproduce itself on its own. Now, a bacteria is a one-cell animal, if you wish. It's one cell, and it can reproduce itself on its own. But a virus can't. A virus is unable to reproduce itself on its own. It cannot do it. Medical profession.
A virus cannot
reproduce itself.
Okay.
Only way that it can reproduce itself if it is attached to the DNA of a human or an animal. It cannot reproduce itself on its own.
Okay.
So therefore, it does not come under the auspices of a living organism. So when they say, oh, use this disinfectant to kill the virus, hey, the virus is not alive. The virus is not alive. That's like saying, use this to kill a rock. Well, a rock is not alive. Okay. But this becomes a very important fact. Now, so we have established that just because you're there doesn't mean that you did it. Now, they also want to tell you that something is contagious because you have a rash. A lot of people say, we got chicken pox, we got smallpox, we got a rash, it must be contagious. But there are just as many rashes in diseases that even the medical profession says are not contagious. Heart disease, you can have a rash. Cancer, you can have a rash. Diabetes, you can have a rash. Lupus, an autoimmune disease, you can have a rash. Psoriasis, you can have a rash. There are just as many rashes in people who have diseases that are not transmissible to other people as those that are. So now we've got established that just because you have a rash does not mean that you have a communicable disease. A communicable disease is a disease that can be transmitted from one person to another. Okay. So then we've got God. What does God say about transmissible diseases? The largest experiment that's ever done in the history of the world was done 3,000 years ago, and the doctor in charge was God himself. And that was when he took the Israelites out of Egypt during the Exodus, 40 years through the wilderness to take them to Canaan. By the way, that's right, there it is. So, by the way, when they got in there, there were over 1 million of them, said there was not one sick among them. So obviously God's plan worked. So what did he do? They were all living in a very tight-knit community, 1,000,000 of them. They were living close together. They had no modern means of sanitation. So God gave them many laws for sanitation. In other words, if you touched a dead body, you were unclean. Now, when a body is decaying, a dead body, whether it's a human or an animal, it emits toxins, poisons. Toxins are poisons. They're not microorganisms. We're not talking about bacteria, viruses. We're talking about poisonous fluid, okay, like drinking antifreeze or something, or drinking strychnine or whatever, okay? So that is a poison. So if you touch that, you are unclean for a period of time, and God tells you how you got to wash yourself and wash your clothes. If you have a draining sore, you are unclean. So indeed, diseases can be transmitted by toxins on your hands. Toxins on your hands, such as a restaurant worker who goes to the bathroom, doesn't wash his hands, and puts them in the food, then you can get food poisoning. But that's not from bacteria, that's from the toxins. And I'll show you why in a little bit. So it's toxins. So you can transmit diseases from one person to another on your hands. However, those are a very small portion of anything that happens, because if you look at the causes of death in America, let's just take America, it's the same everywhere in the world. The number one cause is heart disease. That's not transmissible. The second one is cancer. That's not transmissible. The third or fourth one is like autoimmune diseases, kidney failure. Those are not transmissible diseases, none of them. Suicide, accidents, those are not transmissible, okay? The only one in the first 10 that's listed for the major causes of death in America is pneumonia. But pneumonia is generally an end result event of somebody who is bedridden because they've got cancer or heart disease or something else, and that's on many death certificates. So of all the causes of death that kill people, virtually none of them are, even according to the medical profession, from transmissible diseases, okay? So now we have established several things that make sense, okay? So now let's talk about what God says. God gave the Israelites 549 texts worth of sanitation laws. The Exodus is discussed in the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Joshua, those 5. In those 5 books of the Bible, there are 549 verses that discuss sanitation laws. If you have leprosy, you have to be outside the camp. If you have draining sore, all the things I talked about.
Very specific.
Very specific sanitation laws. Not one sanitation law was given by God to protect them from airborne transmissible diseases. Not one. Out of all those 549 texts, there was nothing to protect them from diseases transmitted from one person to another through the air. And that means that no diseases are transmitted through the air from one person to another, because who would know better than God? And who would want to protect them more than God did? And how could they go into the land of Canaan with 1,000,000 of them and not one sick among them if God didn't give them any of those laws, and diseases could be transmitted that way? So we've got to look at what God says. There are no diseases transmitted through the air. You see, well, what if somebody coughs on me? Well, the whole point is the way diseases, as I show in the book, diseases are caused by the way we live, think, act, eat, and handle stress. There was a study done looking at how colds, just a common variety cold, is transmitted. So they took a number of volunteers and they put wet clothes on them, cold, wet clothes. They put their feet in cold water. They blew cold breezes on them. And they took what they said is pure cold virus and put it up their nostrils. Only 17% of them got a cold. And that's because they were going to get a cold anyway, because colds are caused by the way you live, think, act, eat, and handle stress, not by somebody sneezing on you, not by somebody coughing on you, not by any of those things. It's what happens to you. So you say, well, these diseases, a lot of people in one family get them. A lot of people in one family. Well, let's first talk about the germ theory. The germ theory was proposed by Louis Pasteur of the pasteurization of milk 150 years ago or so. Louis Pasteur said the germ is everything, and the milieu, which you're talking about, the terrain, which is really the immune system. The immune system is nothing. Well, his contemporary, now, by the way, Pasteur was not an MD. He was not an MD. He was a chemist or something. He was not a medical doctor. Now, Beauchamp, Antoine Beauchamp, B-E-C-H-A-M-P, Beauchamp, was a medical doctor. And he was a contemporary, and they were both in France. And he said, no, you are wrong, Pasteur. The germ is nothing. The milieu, or the terrain, or the immune system is everything. Well, Pasteur worked for the government. Pasteur was had a particular ethnic background, of which there are very powerful people in the world. And also Pasteur, his theory is the basis of drug medicine, a drug for every disease. Okay.
That's right.
So he won temporarily. It is said that on his deathbed, I can't confirm this. They said on his deathbed, he said that Beauchamp was right, that the germ is nothing and the milieu is everything. But anyway, Beauchamp also showed that he had a special microscope, and he talked about microzyma. These are little tiny bodies in the blood that he could see that actually become germs. They become bacteria or yeast that are produced by the body. And so this has been known for a long, long time, but everybody said, well, he didn't know what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. Well, so anyway, then we have to get to the point where, how do you prove that a certain germ causes a certain disease? Well, when I was in medical school, we had Koch's postulates. Koch is spelled K-O-C-H, Koch's postulates. And they were the gospel. They said, we were taught Koch's postulates show that a particular germ, whether it's a bacteria or virus, causes disease. But we're never really taught to analyze them properly. So when I went back and I was starting to look at these things again, the first postulate says that if you have the germ in your body, whether it's bacteria or virus, you will show the symptoms of the disease. Well, that had to be abandoned right off. We already know there are a whole lot of people with HIV that are not symptomatic. I mean, look at Magic Johnson, look at a lot of these other people that have HIV and they're not symptomatic. Look at people who have hepatitis B and they're not symptomatic. There are all sorts of, and even more recent viruses, that there are people who are not symptomatic and yet they are said to have the virus. So we know now that Koch's postulates had to be abandoned, even the first one, even when Koch was alive. It had to be abandoned because it didn't work. Mm-hmm. The second of Koch's postulates is that you have to be able to isolate the virus or bacteria from the individual who has it. Well, there are all sorts of viruses that they cannot isolate. They admit that. Even the one that's most prominent now, the CDC admits it's never been isolated. So you cannot do that. So there's the second Koch postulate out the window. All right. This is supposed to be the gospel. The third one is you take that isolated virus or bacteria and you infect another animal or human. Well, they said, well, it's unethical to try to infect a human. So we're doing it in animals, but animals react differently from humans. And besides that, they can't isolate most of them. They can't even inject them in another creature. So there's the third postulate out the window. And then the fourth one is that creature, whether a human or animal, has to develop the disease once the virus or bacteria is put into them. Well, that's out the window too. So all four of Koch's postulates are untrue. We were taught that they were true. In the last year, I talked to a doctor who went to medical school 20 or 25 years after I did. And I said to him, what did they teach you about Koch's postulates? And he said, what? I says, Koch's postulates. And I never heard of them. So they're not even teaching them anymore because they don't work. So then you say, well, how do they prove that a certain microorganism, bacteria, virus, causes a disease? There is no way. They just say it and they say, we said it, and
Because
you
I said
can't
so.
argue with it and shut up.
Yeah, that's a really terrible way of parenting too. You know, it's like, why do I have to do it?
Because I say so. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you know what? And in many cases, and as I was picking up your book and reading it, and I could hear you. I could hear you in my head. I could actually hear your voice.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, there's so much that's based on a lie.
Yeah.
That we just accept it as truth.
Right.
We didn't have to have anything proven to us. But then because we believe a certain way, then we find evidence of whatever we believe. So go ahead.
Therefore, there is no way they can prove to you that any virus or bacteria causes a disease. Now, let's talk about the microbiome. Now, when I was in medical school 55 years ago, we never heard about the microbiome. They never even knew about it. But now it's all the big rage. They talk about probiotics. It's like $60 billion industry with probiotics. So everybody knows that we have a whole bunch of bacteria in our intestine that are good. They're your friends. The doctors say that. Everybody says that. Medical scientists say that. In fact, you have 100 trillion bacteria in your colon. They produce vitamin B12. They produce vitamin K. They are your friends, okay? There are 30,000 different kinds of bacteria, but less than 100 of them cause disease. Well, how can that be? Well, they say there are good bacteria and there are bad bacteria. Well, how do you tell the difference? Well, we don't know.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
Yeah,
You just ask them, right?
But here's the thing. They say, you know, when you live wrong, when you eat wrong, when you don't get enough sleep, when you don't treat your body well, that doesn't make you sick. That doesn't make you sick. What it does is it affects the bacteria, and then they turn on you and make you sick. Well, that is baloney. That is absolute baloney. How could we have 30,000 of them, different types, 30,000 different types? Now we have 100 trillion bacteria in our colon, but there are 30,000 different species of them, but less than 100 cause disease? Baloney. That is wrong. The way you live, think, act, eat, and handle stress makes you sick. And what the bacteria do is they change into a form to clean up the mess that you have caused. Now, God has given us on the earth a whole bunch of scavengers. We have rats and pigs and mice and vultures and insects. And what are they for? They're to clean up the mess on the earth, to clean up the dead tissue, the garbage, and everything that's why God says don't eat unclean animals, because they eat filth and it can make you sick if you eat the animals that eat filth. That's why they're called unclean. All right. So God gave us those on the earth because if we didn't have those scavenger animals there, and they're in the air, the vultures and eagles and all the rest, and then in the sea, there's the clams and lobsters and all that. They clean up the filth. Okay. So if we didn't have those scavenger animals on the earth would be uninhabitable because all the mess that had collected would never go away, and the garbage would never go away. So when you have flies eating the garbage, the flies didn't cause the garbage pile. They're attracted by the dead and dying tissue that's in the garbage pile. Well, guess what? God has given us the same system in our bodies, and they're called bacteria and yeast. They're there to clean up the mess that we cause by the way we live, think, act, eat, and handle stress, by the destruction of our tissues, by the toxins that we cause by just the activities of daily living, or when we make ourselves sick by not getting enough sleep, by being angry, by triggering our fight or flight reaction. We produce all these substances called cytokines that cause inflammation, and that's why when you have a cold, you have a runny nose, because you're getting rid of all the mess in your body. It's cleaning out your body. So you don't want to feel like that. So you go take some drugs from the drugstore and you stop the cleaning out of your body. Well, where do these microorganisms in your intestine come from? How do you get this whole microbiome? By the way, they say, if you take antibiotics, that destroys your microbiome. So then where do you get new ones? They say, oh, well, go get probiotics. Oh, from a cow? I should get my bacteria from a cow? Where does the cow get his bacteria when the cow eats grass? Why do I have to get from the cow? Why can't I just get it the natural way?
From the grass.
If you ask the medical profession, where do you get your microbiome? They say, well, when the baby is born, it comes through the mother's birth canal. That's where it gets it. Okay. Then what if a baby's born by C-section and doesn't go through the birth canal? Well, then they get it from nursing. Well, then what if you have a baby that was born by C-section and for some reason is unable to nurse? Well, we don't know. Well, the answer is that we make these bacteria in our body. We make the bacteria. Remember, I told you that Beauchamp, who is the contemporary of Louis Pasteur of the germ theory, said that these were microzyma, these little bodies that could become whatever kind of bacteria you needed to clean up the mess in your body. Mm-hmm. Well, that was 150 years ago. Within the last 50 years, there was a man in Canada named Gaston Naessons who also developed a very strong microscope, and he could see these things, and he called the same things somatids. And he says, as long as the body is healthy, the somatids go through a cycle of 3. But if the body becomes unhealthy because of the way you're living, eating, and handling stress, then the body will produce the bacteria or yeast that you need to clean up the mess. They can produce a cocci, which is one kind of bacteria, or rods, which is a different form of bacteria, or they can produce mycelia, which are yeast forms. And that's to clean up the mess, just like the scavengers on the earth. Well, when I was back in the early 90s, after I learned a whole lot about what was going on in the world, when I was talking about the AIDS issue in San Francisco, I had a radio show called Truth Serum, and I was interviewing alternative practitioners. And so I contacted Dr. Naessons and asked if I could come and visit him. And I did. I went up to Canada. By the way, he had been attacked viciously by the medical profession because of his views. All right. So I spent an afternoon with him, just the two of us, in his laboratory. And I looked through his microscope and he was showing me these somatids. So then he said, do you want me to look at your blood? And I said, sure. So he pricked my finger, took my blood, and he put it on a slide and he put it under the microscope. Now, this was in 1992. Okay. 1992. And he looked under the microscope and he was silent. And it was kind of getting uncomfortable. The silence was so long. And I said to him, is there a problem? And he turned and looked at me and he said, you have cancer.
So he was the one that told you that.
And I was shocked. I mean, I felt fine. I had no problems. And I just dismissed it. I thought, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You see? And he showed me, and he said, the somatids have changed format and they're going into another format to clean up the mess in your body. 18 months later, I was diagnosed with cancer by biopsy. 18 months later. He diagnosed my cancer 18 months even before any small tumor appeared on my chest. 18 months before. That's pretty amazing. Okay. So what he shows is that we form bacteria and viruses. We form our own microbiome. That's why even if a baby doesn't come through the birth canal, it's a born C-section and doesn't nurse. Now, those are all good things, to be born naturally and to nurse, but the person can still form their own microbiome because we make the bacteria. Now, what happens is that the medical profession has no wisdom. Now, the medical profession is very good at collecting facts. That's called knowledge. Knowledge is a collection of facts, but in order to take those facts and put them in the right order to reach the right conclusion, you need wisdom. Wisdom only comes from God. The Bible says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. That's James 1:5. Even though there are Christian doctors, they don't have the wisdom of the Lord because they're giving out drugs. So what doctors make the big mistake is that when they see bacteria in an area of disease, they automatically say, oh, it caused it. No, it's there cleaning up the mess, just like the firemen, just like the EMTs, just like the vulture, just like the flies eating up the garbage. They are there to clean up the mess. As I give in the book, the illustration that if you have what's called heartburn, it's just old garden variety heartburn, which is caused by dehydration. But they say, oh no, it's caused the ulcer, stomach ulcer and heartburn and GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. It's just plain old garden variety heartburn. Now it's a disease for which you need drugs.
Right.
So stupid. So they say, it's the Helicobacter pylori that causes the disease. No, the Helicobacter pylori is there cleaning up the mess that you cause because you're not drinking enough water, you're too stressed, you're drinking too much coffee, you're dehydrating your body because we have hydrochloric acid in our stomach to help digestion, but it's a very caustic acid. And the way your stomach lining protects itself is to produce a huge amount of mucus to line the stomach lining so the hydrochloric acid doesn't eat a hole in your stomach and it doesn't cause your stomach to contract and shoot it up in the base of your esophagus, which causes heartburn. Okay. So when your body is dehydrated, you can't make enough mucus because mucus is 98 to 99% water. So the cure for GERD, cure for heartburn, cure for stomach ulcer is water. Water, something so simple, but it doesn't make any money.
Well, if you don't have enough hydration, then the mucus in the lining of your stomach will deplete, and then will cause a problem. But let me ask you something. Most people are probably, wanting to say, okay, well, why is it that I have yeast infections? And why is it that, how do I get rid of it? If I have an overgrowth of something that's trying to clean up the mess, do you just let it run its course, or do you just
clean up your body? You clean up your body. The reason you have yeast infections is probably eating too much sugar. You're eating too much animal products. You're not drinking enough water. All the regular things. You see, God has given us the way to be well. And it's the 10 steps of health, which are in all my materials. That's the way I reversed my cancer. Because you see, if you needed modern medicine and drugs to be well, then God would be the biggest bigot ever, because 3/4 of the world do not have access to that. But God has told us, he said, if you obey my laws, my natural health laws, the way you eat, live, and handle stress, my commandments, all 10 of them, and my decrees, learning to love your enemies, learning to forgive everyone who's ever wronged you, don't trigger your fight or flight reaction from anxiety and anger and grudge holding, I will keep you free from every disease. Deuteronomy 7:11-15. So we don't need modern medicine. Modern medicine kills us. Drugs don't cure disease. They don't cure disease. No disease has ever been caused by a deficiency of a drug. Oh, I got high blood pressure because I didn't take enough high blood pressure medication all my life. No. Drugs only treat symptoms. They don't ever treat the underlying cause of the disease.
And it stops the process. So if your body is trying to get rid of the waste that is in the body, then if we take something to stop the symptom, then it gets trapped and prolongs the problem.
Of course. And then when you keep doing that over and over again, then eventually you'll develop some serious disease such as cancer. You go to the doctor and say, why did this happen? And he'll say, we don't know, diseases just happen, but they don't. We give them to ourselves. You stop the cleanup of your body over and over and over again. So you've got all the garbage in your body. It's just like when the garbage collectors are on strike. It's all there in your front yard. Okay, well, it's all in your body when you keep stopping the process of cleaning it out, and then you get some really bad disease. So now you can say, well, all of these diseases, why do several people in a family get a cold at the same time?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there are many times that they thought diseases were transmissible when they turn out not to be. On ships in Britain, they thought that diseases were transmissible because everybody got a terrible disease called scurvy, and all the sailors got it. So they said it must be transmissible. Well, it turns out that scurvy is a deficiency of vitamin C, because when they were out to sea, they didn't have all the proper nutrients. When they finally started putting lemons and limes on the ships, that's why they call the British Navy sailors limeys, then nobody had scurvy anymore. Same thing happened with pellagra, which is a vitamin B deficiency. They thought, oh, well, a lot of people in the family have it. Yeah, because they're all vitamin deficient from vitamin B. And so just because a lot of people have it doesn't mean it's contagious. And that's what Dr. Peter Duesberg also showed in his book called Inventing the HIV Virus. He said that there was a disease in Japan called SMON, which was I describe it in the book what it was, and they thought it was contagious. Turns out it was caused by the drug they were given. People were dying from the drug they were given. And so
well, that sounds very similar to what's happened just recently, that people die from the drugs that were given. They were given incorrectly too.
Correct.
So yeah, amazing.
Yes. So with HIV, we have found that it was never been isolated. It has never been isolated. And the man who really brought that home was Dr. Kary Mullis, who was the inventor, the developer of the PCR test, polymerase chain reaction, which he won the Nobel Prize for. He said when he was starting to write about the HIV virus, he went to even Dr. Luc Montagnier, who supposedly got the Nobel Prize for isolating it. And he could never get him to admit that it was ever isolated. And so Kary Mullis showed, he's a Nobel Prize winner, he showed HIV has never been isolated. And what are people dying of who have HIV? Well, it was the drugs that were being taken by the main group that had and has HIV, the main group, as well as the AZT they were getting. AZT, called zidovudine, was developed actually for chemotherapy, but it was so toxic that they couldn't even give it to cancer patients. So they put it on the shelf. It wasn't even patented. When AIDS came along, they said, oh, let's use this. Killed them. Millions of people died from AZT. So the thing is, what we have to understand is, where did the whole idea of a virus come from? Well, the tobacco industry is a very prominent industry and has been for a long time. In the late 1800s, a Russian scientist found that there was a disease in tobacco, in the tobacco leaves. And so he knew that there were bacteria. So he put a filter on it. He took the leaves, he crushed them up, the diseased leaves, and then he filtered them through a filter that would filter out all the bacteria. So all he had was this fluid left, and he put it on healthy tobacco leaves, and they got the disease. So he knew it was not a bacteria, so he said, it is a poison. Now remember, there's a difference between poisons and microorganisms. Poisons are just a fluid like strychnine or, drinking, what did I say? Or drinking, whether it's strychnine or any of the other drugs, or drinking the fluid that would, that people kill other people with. Cyanide. They put it in a drink. Cyanide. No, well, there's cyanide, and then there's the stuff you put in a car. That's what
gasoline.
No, I put it down here. It's called antifreeze. Okay.
Antifreeze. Okay.
Antifreeze. So not in a car. You put it in the household thing. So anyway, so that is the difference between a microorganism is something that's supposedly alive and chemicals, which are poisons. So he said it is a poison, and he was right. It is a poison that these tobacco leaves are producing that can infect another one. Just like I told you, a restaurant worker can take the toxins and put them in the food.
Yeah.
All right. So now this experiment was repeated in the Rockefeller Institute by a guy named Stanley in the 1940s, and he came to the same conclusion. It is a poison. However, doctors want to sound very erudite. They want to make sure that everybody knows how smart they are. So they like to say things in Latin. So what is the Latin word for poison? It's virus. So the word virus means poison in Latin. It doesn't mean a microorganism. It means a poison. But now they say, oh, well, these little pieces of DNA, which are actually the cell debris from dead cells, those are the viruses. No. And then they say they are alive. Well, we don't know. Are they alive? Are they dead? No. Well, they can't reproduce themselves on their own, so they can't be alive. So they're not a living thing. Oh, now everybody loves the idea of a virus. And there are three reasons everybody loves the idea of a virus. Number one, you can say, I didn't cause this myself. Somebody sneezed on me, so therefore it's not my fault. Okay, that terrible person came to work and they had a cold and they sneezed on me and that's why I got it. Well, they're wrong. The second thing is that the evolutionists love the idea of a virus because they don't know that it's not alive, it is alive, it is whatever. So it is the bridge from non-living things to living things. So it's why you can have a rock become a human being, because it is the bridge, because we don't know, is it alive, is it not alive? And so then evolutionists love it. And then, of course, the drug companies love it because they say there are more viruses than there are stars in the sky. There are quadrillion viruses, but only 219 cause disease. Oh, come on. But you see, there's an endless number of viruses that can appear that they can make a drug for. So everybody loves the idea of a virus. Viruses don't exist. Viruses don't exist. Everybody has been deceived. Viruses don't exist, and diseases cannot be transmitted from one person to another. And in this book, I talk about all of the pandemics, way back to Spanish flu in 1918.
Yeah, I was looking at that. A great information. All of you need to go to drday.com or goodnewsaboutgod.com and get your book at the and the website. I want to quickly go back and talk about the website, Dr. Day, and then we can take a wrap. We've got about 10 minutes left for this particular class. I don't know if we're going to be going. Are we going to be going a little bit longer?
I think I can wrap it up in that time.
Okay, so for those of you who have questions, once again, make sure you type in a Q. If you're on Facebook, just write your question down and I can get, well, actually, no, you got to work for this one. You need to email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com. I'll gather all your questions, send them to me as soon as possible. Within a week, I will gather all the questions and send them to Dr. Day, and then I'll have her respond. Now, if you want me to send you a copy, just make sure you email me, and then I will email it back to you if you want the answer back. And for those of you, I want you to know that you're watching this live at whenyouneedafriend.com, Facebook and YouTube. And so I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com and subscribe there. Please like and follow me on all social media. The reason why you subscribe to my channel is that we are now broadcasting live from there. And if you don't want to be on Facebook or YouTube, now you have an alternative way to view the class. Also, I want to encourage you to check out my sponsors, support them the way that they are supporting the classroom. It's become very expensive to do the class, and I need your generosity, whether it's $1 or $1,000 monthly or a one-time donation, whatever you can afford or whatever you want to tithe, spirit, mind, and body, time, talent, treasure, will be greatly appreciated. You can go to my Shop Now bag if you want to get something out of it, because that will give a small percentage to the classroom. And you can check out some of the products that have been Lilly approved. These are natural products that will help your body achieve the natural life that you desire. Yeah, natural health. I'm just trying to think of what word can I say, what word can I not say. So I just want to encourage you to check it out and shop there in the Shop Now bag. And also, like I said, you can get your book. And I have to say, when I received this book, I thought, I can't work out with this book. Now, this is the book you want to get. This one right here. If you want to work out, this is a great workout. I had to bring it out. This is like every time I pick it up, I go, oh, okay, I can do some squats with this book. But this one here, it's a quick read, and it's a read that it is a quick read, and it isn't a quick read, because you want to stop and digest this, because we have been taught incorrectly. And so I'm not asking you to believe what you're reading. I'm not asking you to believe what you're hearing. What I'm asking you is to be curious. We talked about this yesterday with Dr. Palevsky, about how curiosity opens the door to learning and to growth. And so I want you to be curious, because if you're hearing this for the first time and you're going, oh, this is ridiculous, so-and-so coughed on me and that's why I got sick, listen to what she's saying. She's saying that it's the toxins in your body and the germs in your body, not the germs in your body, the virus, not the viruses,
the toxins.
Yeah,
that
your body,
inflammation is producing.
your cells are sending out the patrol to clean up. And what we do is we stop it. We stop our natural body from going through the cycle of health. And so I want to encourage you to get the book. Go to drday.com or Good News About God. Also, I want you to know that Dr. Day, every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, she has a Bible study. And so I want to encourage you to attend it, because it's free. And even if it were $1 million, it would be worth it. So go to Good News About God. And if you're not signed up yet, if you're the one person who hasn't signed up yet, go to Good News About God, click on the links. That'll send Dr. Day an email, and you can get on her list so that you can be notified when she is having her classes Monday nights. And you've only missed like one or two, haven't you?
Just one in a year.
One in a year. One in a year. And I mean, it's amazing. So if you guys want to continue to learn and grow, be curious about this. Sit down and say, is there profit here? Is somebody profiting from my illnesses? And so that's where I want you to sit with, and then read the book, and why it's important for us to believe that you're a victim. And the reality is, we're all empowered. We're all empowered to this information, and I'm hoping that you'll take it serious. Another thing that Dr. Day, I did talk about the 100 lessons from the Exodus. We have this online, and we have the Book of Revelation online and on DVD. Now we also have the Isla Hall. The Isla Hall is donating, so that if you want the DVD and you can't afford the whole amount, there is an amount that we can put towards that. So if you're interested in that, you are welcome to reach out to me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com, or you can text me at 407-373-5959. This is amazing, Dr. Day, that as you were coming up with this, other doctors are coming out with it as well. They're talking about terrain versus, and it's always been around. And I love how you say, you know what, I taught this too. So what if somebody's tuning in right now, and you are, as we know, we're wrapping up because there's not going to be a Teacher's Pet Corner today. What else do you want to tell us that you have not been able to say?
Well, the very important thing is, if you still think germs cause disease, then you prove it to me. Prove it to me. Prove to me what evidence they use to say a certain germ causes a certain disease, because I'm telling you, there's no proof. There's no proof at all. If they bring up Koch's postulates, those have been abandoned long ago. They don't work. So there is no independent way for them to say a certain microorganism, a bacteria, virus, produces a certain disease. And everything else is to the contrary. People know about their microbiome now. And so what we have to realize is, well, how could so many doctors be wrong? I was wrong. I didn't teach my medical students the proper thing because I was also deceived by my professors.
Mhm.
And it's only when you start having the wisdom of God and he opens your mind to truth do you start seeing these things. Everybody has been hoodwinked and people don't know about it. You can't fool me. Oh, don't be so surprised. They can fool you on many, many things. I could list a whole bunch of them right now where people have been fooled. So see, God has given us a way to be well. It doesn't require injections. It doesn't require drugs. It doesn't require anything. God doesn't need the help of any of these people that are prominent on the screen at this time of the Earth's history. Doesn't
Yes.
need their input. God has given us a way to get well by, he says, if you follow my laws, all of us natural health laws, which I have in all my health materials, follow my laws, my commandments, and my decrees, I will keep you free from every disease. You don't need anything from the medical profession. You don't need injections of anything. You don't need injections of drugs. You don't need injections of anything else. God has given us a way to be well. This is really the great controversy between Christ and Satan, between good and evil. Who are you going to believe? The Bible says we ought to obey God rather than man, Acts 5:29. But yet people are going to doctors. In how many human bodies has your doctor ever created? It's a war between for the hearts of mankind.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And this is a war against Christ and Christianity and good health and God's health plan. It's been going on for years. By the way, I have another book that's at the printer right now, and maybe next month we can discuss it. It's called When is Jesus Coming? And I show you from the prophecies that's very, very specific. God gives us, tells us, and we're getting very close. I have another book that I am putting all the DVDs that I have, 8 DVDs on health in a book, plus 10 other chapters, new chapters in that book. And I show in that book how the Rockefellers way back in the late 1800s started to eliminate all natural healing. This is again a war against God. And they started that and they're continuing that. And the people who are doing that now have attacked me viciously. I've been attacked by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, the FCC, the FDA, the Federal Department of the Federal Drug and Administration. And then I have been attacked by the New York Times. I've been attacked by AARP. This is just a continuation. I realized at first I thought it was just some disgruntled old man who didn't have enough to do, but I realized that he's part of the cabal that's been going on for over 100 years, the same cabal to attack God and his health plan, to attack and yet most Christian churches, they don't know how to be well. They all go to doctors, they take drugs, and they take all the shots that they give them and all that. And that is not what God wants. That is not what God wants. If the churches knew God, they would know how to be well. But the churches are full of people who are sick and dying.
Absolutely.
And
And
so
doctors and all doctors as well. They don't know, like you say,
they don't know.
They don't know how to treat you. They're treating you for the same diseases that they're dying from.
Right.
And
right.
so,
They
Dr.
don't know how to
Day,
be.
I really appreciate not only our friendship, I really do, of all the things, that's my special thing that I take with me, but the wisdom that you share upon us and that you are so passionate about it. You don't have to write these books. You could probably be sipping water from a beautiful glass. So what I'm saying is, for those of you who are tuning in to Dr. Day and watching Dr. Day today for the first time, please know that that she's poking you in the eye so that you can say, is this true? What is their profit? Why would God be circumvented? Why would the terrain theory be circumvented? These are all hijackings. And but bottom line is, we've been programmed. And do you want to be deprogrammed? One of the things I want to invite you to is deprogramming with I Am the Solution. Dr. Day is already booked. August 26th, 27th, and 28th. She'll be with us on Saturday. I want to invite you to the deprogramming I Am the Solution, so that you can put God first in you and not trust anyone but God. And Dr. Day, final words before we go.
Again, you don't have to be sick. Nobody has to be sick. I told you I had what was diagnosed as terminal cancer 29 years ago. I'm totally well and cancer-free. I don't take any medications. I've got the energy of a 30-year-old. And
yeah, she does. I can testify to that.
And it won't be long until I'm 86. So the whole point is you don't have to be sick. And God has provided us a way to get well. But if people would only trust God instead of trusting man, but they have a very difficult time with that. And the reason we're going through what we're going through in the world now is because people have rejected God. The answer is to return to God, not to try to just take America back. Return to God.
I love it. I love it. And for those of you who have questions and didn't get your questions answered, we couldn't do a Teacher's Pet Corner today. So what I'd like for you to do is send your emails. You can text me too. I'll accept the text, 407-373-5959. But send me your emails, and that way I'll have your email and I can send you the answers to Dr. Day's the answers to your questions from Dr. Day. And so just please know that we are here waiting for you to be a part of this awakening and turn towards Christ. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Lorraine Day wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.